During today's technology review, we will briefly discuss the business challenge surrounding the project approval process. We will then explore some of the functionality Autodesk InfraWorks provides that can greatly improve on this process. We will begin by exploring several visualization techniques. Next, we will discuss several forms of analysis that can be completed. We will then discuss several ways our designs can be presented, and we will conclude with a short summary. So let's get started. We begin with the business challenge. Now this is something I am extremely familiar with. In addition to working for Autodesk, I was also the village president in the community where I live. As village president for the better part of 10 years, I presided over meetings involving project approval. And the number one challenge is your ability to convey your design intent to the lay person. In other words, the majority of the folks that sit on a municipal board or a planning and zoning commission or some other recommending body are just regular people from the community. As a result, the folks deciding if a project moves forward or not have no background in civil engineering, transportation, land development, construction, or anything else related to your project. Instead, they are usually a retired teacher, bus driver, insurance salesman, beautician, accountant, and the list goes on and on. Now this doesn't make them bad people, it just means that when you show them your 2D plan sheets or construction documents, they typically cannot visualize or understand your design intent. Instead, there is often confusion and misconception surrounding your project and its impact on the community. And the main problem with this is that people will not approve something that they do not understand. Currently, the easiest way to resolve this issue is to address their concerns with new exhibits at another meeting. And because these meetings are only conducted every few weeks, your project can be easily delayed, which quickly translates into increased costs. So let's shift gears and see how InfraWorks can improve this situation. We will start with visualization and take a look at bookmarks. The models we make in InfraWorks can be large, and we need a quick way to jump to specific points within the model. A bookmark can do just that. We need only navigate to the desired location and then save it as a bookmark. In this case, we have a project site where we will be exploring several proposed road alternatives. Because we want to be able to quickly return to this area, we will click Add Bookmark and give it a name. Once finished, we will click on the bookmark drop-down to restore this or any other bookmark saved in our model. This can be quite powerful when addressing folks at a meeting. For example, if there is a concern about some aspect of your project design, you can quickly show other areas in town with a similar configuration. As a result, InfraWorks gives you the option to address stakeholder questions in real time at the meeting. Now for our project, we will be comparing and contrasting two different roadway alternatives which will connect existing streets across our site. We will accomplish this by creating a proposal. Using proposals, we can quickly toggle between multiple design options as well as view some metrics around the impact of each one. To create a proposal, much like a bookmark, we will click on the green plus in the proposal dialog and assign it a name. Once a name has been assigned, we can begin our preliminary design. In this case, I will just create a simple roadway. So I'll click my points from the left to the right, and we will conclude at the intersection here. When finished, I will return to the proposal dialog and then create a proposal for my alternate design. In this case, I'll call it alternate 2 and then quickly create my secondary option. Now, because this option involves the roadway being closer to the lake, I can expect more challenging terrain as well as more of my site being available for other development. So once again, I'll pick points moving from the left to the right, completing at the same intersection. Now, once finished with this one, I can return to the proposals dialog and easily see some metrics around the differences between alternate 1 and alternate 2. In this case, alternate 1 is shorter than alternate 2 by roughly 200 feet. In a more complex design, the other categories within the dialog would also be populated. Using proposals, InfraWorks allows us to quickly display as well as speak to numerous design options, both in real time as well as within the context of the existing surroundings. As a result, InfraWorks gives you the tools to communicate your design intent to your stakeholders, as well as provide real-time metrics as to why what you are suggesting is the best available option. Next, we will explore some analysis options, beginning with themes. We have two forms of themes to choose from. We will start with a terrain theme. Using a terrain theme, we can quickly colorize our surface based on different parameters. In this case, I will use slope. After choosing slope, I will set my parameters with respect to minimum and maximum values, as well as the colors to use in the display. In this case, I will choose shades of green for shallow slopes and shades of red for steeper slopes. I will also set a transparency such that I can see my terrain through the theme colors. When finished, I can quickly identify areas of concern and speak to how my design will be impacted by them. Themes like these can be saved and recomputed on the fly. In this case, I have restored an elevation theme whereby I can quickly convey areas that may or may not be subject to drainage concerns. By coupling this with proposals we looked at earlier, I can easily restore my road design alternatives and speak to how drainage may or may not impact my project. Now, when it comes to themes, we can also colorize values within our model. We will do this by creating a feature theme. Once again, we click the green plus and then establish our values. In this case, I will theme my buildings based on a building height. Like my slopes, I will color shorter buildings with green and graduate the color to red as the buildings get taller. When finished, InfraWorks thematically maps thousands of buildings instantly and leaves me with a fantastic tool to address the concerns or questions of my stakeholders. For example, I once presided over a meeting where density became an issue. At the time, this would have been a very valuable tool to easily confirm or deny public comments made during the meeting. The next form of analysis we will review is measurements. Using the measurements tool within InfraWorks, we can easily compute distances, areas, and more. In this case, I can quickly determine the existing parking lot dimensions, as well as calculate the building's height and its proximity to the detention area. We will begin by selecting point to point and then clicking points within our model to compute a distance. In this case, we can confirm that the existing parking lot is 178 feet by roughly 59 feet. By moving over to the building location, we can also confirm that the proposed building is within the ordinance requirements. In this case, after close inspection, we can see that the building is roughly 21 feet tall, and it is approximately 66 feet from the detention area. Both values fall within what the ordinance calls for. Now, because the detention area is proposed, we can choose the terrain statistics option and click points around the detention area. In doing so, InfraWorks will report not only the distance and area, but also the cut and fill associated with this change to the existing surface. In this case, the impact of the cut is approximately 900 cubic yards. Another form of measurement that can be helpful is the Rangefinder. In this situation, I will compute the rough distance from my proposed building to other areas within my model. For example, looking at the bottom of the Rangefinder, I can see that I'm roughly 150 feet to the parking lot, about 350 feet to the roadway, and various distances to other structures. This can be a great tool to quickly address questions regarding distances away from specific structures like churches or schools. It can also be used to explain why access to utilities may be challenging due to their proximity to your project. One of the most compelling forms of analysis is line of sight. When the not in my backyard folks show up at a meeting, they all want to know exactly what they can see from their property. Using InfraWorks, we can easily address this by performing a line of sight analysis. We begin by clicking on Analyze and then choosing Select Visible. InfraWorks will instantly compute and highlight all of the model objects that can be seen from the current viewpoint. As I back up our camera, we know with certainty what is visible from that location. Our final form of analysis is a shadow study. To determine the impact shadows have on our project, we need only click on shadow casting and fill out the dialog accordingly. In this case, I used a single click option whereby InfraWorks will compute and display shadows from sunrise to sunset. Notice there are also options to select specific times of day as well as specific days of the year. Now, I've worked on several projects involving structures such as water towers and wind turbines where shadows are of great concern to the project stakeholders. Using InfraWorks would have afforded us the ability to be more proactive in our presentations by giving us the tools to respond to questions before we got them. In our final demonstration, we will look at several ways to present our design. We'll begin with a storyboard. Essentially, a storyboard provides us the ability to quickly present our design in a way that can be easily understood by the layperson. Let's pull together something simple so you can see what's involved. We'll begin with a new storyboard and create a new camera path. Basically, this is our starting point. We will then move to the next place we would like to be within our model. Once we reach that location, we will click on the plus to create a new keyframe. The great part about this is InfraWorks will automatically work out all of the frames in between. We then move to the next location and click the plus to determine our next position in the model. We repeat this process several more times to create a storyboard whereby we will zoom into our proposed building and then move around the back and then view it from overhead. At the end of the day, it is a simple process to capture and present our design project. Keep in mind that there are numerous additional options for building your storyboard, and we are merely exploring a quick and simple example. And we'll go ahead and wrap up our last and final keyframe. When finished, we can click play in the storyboard dialog, and InfraWorks will present the results. In this case, the default playback speed is way too fast, so we'll have to go back and change it. Now we can fix this by selecting the first keyframe and setting the speed to something more reasonable. After doing so, InfraWorks then gives us the option to keep this speed for the remaining frames. We'll go ahead and check on keyframe 2 and 3, and we see that that's being held through the remaining portion of the storyboard. After clicking play, we see that our presentation looks much better. We now have a smooth transition from beginning all the way around the building and to our definition or our place where we have set up for the end. Now, keep in mind that we're not limited to a single storyboard entry. For example, I'm going to go back and return to the roadway design that we created earlier, and we'll set up an automatic drive-through of alternate number 2 by adding a new entry to the storyboard. So we'll return to that location in the model, and once we've established it, we'll go ahead and select create from the design or create from design road, and InfraWorks will give us the opportunity to choose which road to display. After selecting the road, InfraWorks will automatically add all of the necessary information and keyframes to the storyboard pane. Now to wrap things up, I'm going to go ahead and add some annotations to my presentation. So we'll go ahead and click and drag and separate some of my views within the storyboard so that I've given myself a little bit of room. And we'll go ahead and click to create the first caption. I'll drag that down to the beginning of the storyboard, and then we'll come over to the area on the right where I can establish what that caption will read. In this case, I'll set it to read that it's my project site. Once complete, we'll go ahead and we'll set up a second caption. In this case, this one I'll set up for the roadway. So we'll create the caption, we'll slide it over the roadway area, and we'll define this to read roadway improvements. Once complete, there is one final item that we'll add to the storyboard. I'm going to take and create a new title. And what a title will do for me is it'll give me more of a professional looking entry into my storyboard. So we'll go ahead and add the title, come over to the right much like the caption, and I will set my title to read Capital Improvement Projects. Alright, with my title complete, we'll perform just some last minute edits. I'm just going to move over the project site portion so that it begins after the title. We will drag over the roadway portion, or my drive-through, of alternate 2 so that it begins immediately after the project site. And then I can maybe increase the duration of my captions so that they remain on the screen a little bit longer. Alright, very easy, very intuitive, very visual. It provides a nice front end for us to make a very professional looking presentation. So we'll view that by sliding the slider bar to the beginning. We'll click on play, and it shows my completed presentation. So it begins with the title, and as we see as it moves through the storyboard dialog, our title appears, our captions appear and disappear, and within a matter of just a few minutes we create a very professional looking presentation of 2 components of my capital improvement project. Now keep in mind that this animation can be played in real time as well as exported to an AVI video file such that it could be incorporated into a PowerPoint. Here's a brief example of a project that was put together by one of our customers, the folks at Cole Engineering. This project reinforces some of the techniques we just looked at with storyboarding and creating keyframes, in that the folks at Cole put together this video to represent the project that they're currently working on, which is a long trench with some pipes and infrastructure improvements. So whether you're a layperson or you've got a background in construction and engineering, it's very easy looking at the video that they produced, the location of the pipe, and those areas that will be affected as a result of the construction, and those people who will be impacted by the project. Another way to present my project is via a scenario. Essentially, a scenario allows me to export a portion of my model to the cloud such that it can be viewed using a browser or mobile device. We will begin by creating a new scenario and defining its limits via a bounding box. I'll begin by verifying the scenario name and then clicking on B-box to determine the limits. I'll then click the lower left-hand corner followed by the upper right-hand corner. Because the storyboard is available in my model, InfraWorks gives me the ability to export that as well. So I'll go ahead and highlight that and I'll click OK. I'll next begin the process to publish my model to the cloud. To accomplish this, we'll select the scenario name in the scenario dialog, and then we'll select the option to publish the selected areas to Autodesk InfraWorks 360. In doing so, I will publish it to a particular group. Using groups, I can control access to various folks who can obtain or view my models. And after selecting that and telling it to continue, it will go ahead and build the package and export that to the cloud such that it's available for me on my mobile device or for me to view through a browser. With my scenario saved to the cloud, I can launch the free InfraWorks 360 app on my iPad to view the results. I'll begin by selecting my model from the list and then experiment with some of the navigation tools. We can use tools similar to a joystick, as well as traditional pinch and swipe iPad operations. For example, by simply sliding my finger across the display, I can adjust my field of view. So very simple and easy to use. Whether it's me who's familiar with the project or one of the project stakeholders, they'll find it very easy to navigate through what was created. Now, because we exported our storyboard, we can instantly play it back by selecting the storyboard button at the top of the display and then press play. Using InfraWorks, in literally less than 10 minutes, we were able to produce a video of our project as well as export it to the cloud such that us or any other stakeholder can explore the design on their mobile device. Now think for a minute how impactful that is, that they would have the opportunity to view it on an iPad as opposed to trying to read information off a 2D construction drawing. Once again, like we mentioned before, construction drawings may not necessarily be something that's in their background or something they're familiar with, but being able to negotiate a model within an iPad certainly gives them the opportunity or the venue to work with something that's a lot easier for them to understand and interpret. Well, that brings us to the end of the technology review portion of today's presentation. But before we wrap up, I'd like to briefly summarize some of what we discussed. First, we talked about how our ability or inability to convey our design intent can directly impact the overall length of our project approval process. Essentially, we need to effectively communicate our project in a way that the layperson can easily understand, because if we don't, delays as well as increased costs are sure to be a problem. Fortunately, InfraWorks can help us tremendously with this. First, we can leverage several forms of visualization. We can use bookmarks to quickly navigate to different areas within our model in real time. This can assist us in addressing questions as well as respond to comments during the meeting. We can also use proposals to help explore project alternatives, as well as provide metrics why one option is more beneficial to the stakeholders than the other. Next, we looked at various forms of analysis, including themes, line of sight, shadows, and standard measurements. Using these tools, we have the opportunity to be more nimble in providing detailed information in response to stakeholder input. The line of sight tool alone has the potential to eliminate the need for subsequent meetings because you have the option to respond immediately to surrounding property owners' primary concern. Finally, we looked at a couple forms of presentation. We began with a storyboard, which allowed us to craft a simple and easy to understand presentation. It also provides us the tools to create still frame renderings, as well as recorded video that can be embedded into any presentation, as well as posted on a website. We concluded by looking at how a scenario can be used, such that our project becomes both portable as well as available to a wider audience through a mobile device. So what have we learned? All projects require some form of approval, and the traditional approval process is slow and linear. InfraWorks provides the tools to change the conversation with the project stakeholders, and as a result can reduce the time it takes to get your project approved.